Hey guys, welcome to She Knows Arsenal. Make sure you guys are liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Welcome to another episode of Transfer Talk. We're going over the most recent Arsenal transfer news, and I know you guys love transfer news, so let's go ahead and get into it. On today's show, we're going to be talking about Toney links. Ivan Toney has been linked to Arsenal, which will excite a big part of the fan base because everybody's been asking about a number 9, so we're going to talk about that. Mark Guehi and Shurrs have been linked as Timber replacements, so we'll talk about each one of those and whether or not they're good enough for Arsenal. Ansu Fati also linked once again to Arsenal, and Balogun's fee should be agreed very soon. Like we already talked about yesterday, there's already like a rough draft of like what the agreement will look like. Payment structures are being spoken about. Personal terms are already agreed. And with Balogun on his way out, there might be an avenue for somebody to come in, which would be amazing. So make sure you guys are liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Let's see what you guys are saying. Ashoke says, hey, Jess, how are you today? I am good. I cannot complain. I can complain a little bit. I'm doing a lot of laundry. I don't know if you guys do this too. Probably not. But I just wait so long to do any sort of laundry. Like, I'm just the worst. And so, like, I'm looking at these big piles of laundry. Like, I don't want to do this. Like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. Damien says, we don't need Guehi because we ain't selling Gabrielle. AC Slater says, you're not on mute. Yeah, I'm not, which is great. Damien says we need Koundé to cover Saliba and right back. Bendover says hello. Bendover also says Barca would never sell, saying maybe about Ansu Fati. to be honest, I don't think that's true at this point. Damien says Barca will get Cancelo, then they will have to sell FFP. Ansu Fati is a third choice behind Rafinha and that young kid. We will get them both. Boy says, I can't see why we need to get more defenders before getting some out. Well, nothing is going to happen until we get players out. And we'll talk about the players that are kind of on the outskirts of the squad that haven't been training and how they're going to pave the way for potentially 1 or 2 signings to come in. So we definitely have to get players out, but that doesn't mean that we won't be able to get people in. Damien says, sure is a myth. Paper talk. He is slow. I don't know. I like when I was looking at some clips of him, he didn't look that slow, but we will see. Boy says, want nothing to do with Toney. Don One says, Toney is not good enough for Arsenal. Cello says, Toney is exactly what Arsenal needs. So obviously there's a difference of opinion here, which is great because this is not an echo chamber. I actually have thoughts on Toney now because I've always kind of been a little bit like, I'm not sure, but I have a definitive opinion about it now. Damien says, why is nobody talking about Toney's sickness and why Wolves didn't sign him? Talking about scoliosis, I'm pretty sure you're talking about. Let's see. Clock Orange says, big up, Jess. Big up to you as well. Blaze says, hi, Jess. How are you doing? I'm doing really well. Badir says, big up, Jess. And the chat. Gun says, hi, Jess. Peace and much blessings. Be healthy. Thank you so much. Tom Cocker says, Toney would give us the title. And Sola says, we need 2 more signings really to compete. So yeah, like obviously there's tons to talk about. Like I wish we were, sitting here on the, off of the back of like an Orny bomb or something like that. But really, because nobody has truly left yet, we're kind of just waiting on outgoings, right? We're just waiting for guys to go. And so there has been, some reports on guys that have been in training. And, I know some people have some feelings on whether or not, players should be kind of like exiled from training when we're looking to move them on. I actually don't have an issue with that, to be honest. But, that gives you a good indication of who Arsenal are trying to get rid of and who they're trying to keep. And in today's training session, there was no Pepe, no Cedric, no Tierney, no Balogun, no Holding, no Nuno, and no Lakanga. So, and I don't think any of those should come as a surprise. I think the majority of these players we know Arsenal are looking to move on from. And hopefully Arsenal are able to get some sort of, fee or an obligation to buy for some of these guys. Balogun, like I was saying earlier, the fee should be agreed pretty soon for him. And this deal should be wrapped up by the end of the week. I think with Monaco, they want to get a outline of the deal sorted before they put in the official bid because you just want it to get accepted and for things to just be done from there. And it doesn't really look like there's going to be that much competition for his signature, meaning I do think other teams have started to turn to other alternatives, like Fulham are looking at Zapata, I think, from Atalanta. I think Chelsea are starting to look in other directions because it's pretty clear that he's going to go to Monaco. So the 2 teams can kind of just talk it out amongst each other and try to get it done. But the sooner this gets done, the better, because obviously we don't have much time left in the window. And if we were to want to go out into the market and do something else, Balogun would have to be like signed, sealed, and delivered at Monaco. So no Balogun, Tierney as well. I'm a part of a group chat and somebody that is like coming to town, for I think the Fulham game did a tour of the Emirates, and his kid is not even up in the dressing room anymore. So I mean, Tierney is going, and I think some people felt like if Timber's injury was really serious, that would mean that we do a U-turn on Tierney. He is so far down the pecking order on the left-hand side that I don't even think Timber's injury really makes a difference for him. It was Zinchenko, and then Timber was ahead of him. Tomiyasu is ahead of him, and then Kivior is already there. So Tierney is definitely somebody that looks set to go in this window. And again, people are saying, well, guys have to go in order to bring guys in. Technically, with bringing in another defender, we are replacing Timber, who is already in the team despite Tierney being there. So I don't actually think defenders have to go necessarily, but we do want to open up some space in the squad. Holding, there were some rumors about Besiktas being interested in him and opening talks. We know that they put in some ridiculous £2 million bid earlier on, and it was swiftly rejected. So hopefully they come back in with, I don't know, 5 and like get it done. The one thing I'll say about Holding is that he is a really good character to have around the team. And I get that that's really important to Mikel Arteta. And he had that really nice story around Kivior and making sure Kivior, took photos with the community shield and stuff like that so you could have memories for the future and things like that. And so I don't doubt for a single second that Rob Holding is an amazing character around the dressing room. But I just feel like it's well overdue for him to move on, so hopefully we can get some sort of fee and move him on ASAP. Lakanga, like we spoke about yesterday, Monaco, I think, would only really bring him in if Yusuf Fofana were to leave. And as of now, his move to Nottingham Forest hasn't quite moved beyond Nottingham Forest and Monaco agreeing a fee. I think he's waiting on another club to come get him. I mean, this is a French international. Like, this is somebody that plays at a pretty high level. So I'd be surprised if he just went to Nottingham Forest without like really having to, look at his other options. So, who knows what's going to happen with Lakanga, but maybe, the French league would be a good landing spot for him. And then Nuno Tavares, we know that he was looking at potentially moving to Aston Villa. The issue with moving to Aston Villa at this point is that Luca Digne looks set to stay after their European qualifier match that they had against Hibs. He had a hat trick of assists, and Unai Emery went into the press and basically said that he's more likely to stay. So with Luca Digne staying, it doesn't necessarily look like there's an opening for Nuno or Tierney to go to Aston Villa, which makes it even more well, where are they going to go? Because Aston Villa probably would have been a good landing spot for either one of them. So there are some players that are on the outskirts of the squad, not really training with the team. And hopefully they're able to open up some spots for some potential incomings that we'll be talking about in just a moment. Something that I want to point out, though, that I think is super, super important and probably the most exciting news from today is that Gabriel Jesus is back in training. And not to be dramatic, but I was so excited. I was just yes, because I love Gabriel Jesus. I know that he misses big chances. I get that. He's not clinical, but we know our front line needs that fluidity, needs a creative player up there, needs somebody up there that can dribble and unlock defenses, especially because it feels like every single game we're going to play against a deep block. And so, Gabriel Jesus being back in training is really good because also we're going to start coming up to some more difficult games. I know we have Manchester United and Spurs and Manchester City coming up. And so, yeah, super excited for Gabriel Jesus to be back in the fold. Let's see what you guys are saying. Let's see. Don One says, I like Edu, but he needs to get his game up in terms of selling players. Kind of spoke about that yesterday. It's is it just because Arsenal have historically been bad at selling, or is it because Edu is not good at selling? I'm not sure what it is just yet. I'm really hoping that he recoups some decent fees for the players that we have, but right now it's not looking great. I'll be so honest with you. Boy says, we've seen the Maguire that players aren't going to just leave when we want them to. So I'm accepting that we are stuck with these players on contracts for the foreseeable. Some of them, yes, but others, no. Don One says, sell Balogun to Monaco, put a buyback. The clauses are going to be super important when it comes to Balogun for sure. See, Walter says, I'm not sold on Toney either. And people need to people seem to have forgotten how damn good Jesus is. We'll talk about that in just a second. Blaze says Arsenal have a meltdown over Tierney. Arsenal fans are emotionally attached to players. We love players over the club, and it's not good sign from fans. With Tierney, to be honest, Tierney has always been one of my favorite players, and he was kind of one of the first guys in this new group, this new era of Arsenal, where we really began to love the team again. And it's a shame to see that he's not really a part of the plans, because I know so many people love him, and I get why. Like, he works really hard. He's a talented player. After going through years and years of just players that you just are like, are they even Arsenal quality? To have Tierney come into the team was great, but he's not an Arteta signing. And I think people forget that. And sometimes when you give a new player a new contract, it's not necessarily because you want that player there for good or forever. It's because you want to be able to maintain their value. And so Kieran is somebody that, I just don't think really fits what we're trying to do right now, and looks an odd fit, trying to invert, on that left-hand side, or play any sort of variation of a left back that doesn't bomb up the side and put in crosses. He looks very out of place, and he's tried, I think, as hard as he can to like make it work. But he deserves to be at a team where he can play like significant minutes. Like, I think he's a really good player. So I understand why people are emotionally attached to Kieran Tierney. But, I don't actually think it's a good idea to keep him, to be honest. I think we should be trying to sell him, because once it's obvious that you need to sell a player, it's too late. And Arsenal's best sales have always come when it hasn't been obvious that you need to sell a player. Iwobi and Willock. It wasn't overtly obvious that these guys needed to go. We were able to get good fees, and we didn't look back and say, did we make a mistake? Some people tried it with Willock, but like, be for real. We didn't make a mistake. That was a good sale, right? And so Tierney is the same for me. Once a couple years go by and, his contract is run down a little bit more and he's really, really down the pecking order, it's going to be too obvious that we need to sell him and we won't get anything. So this is a good time to try to move him on. It's just whether or not Arsenal can actually get a fee for him, because they're struggling. I'm actually surprised Tierney's stocks are so low. I'm very surprised that like he really hasn't been snapped up. Like that's very shocking to me. Let's see what you guys are saying. Maximius says Lakanga is Belgian, not French. No, I didn't say it was French. If I said he was French, that's not what I meant. I know he's Belgian. I'm saying maybe France would be a good landing spot for him. Because, Monaco are interested in him, and maybe another team in France would be a good place for him, because it's a different type of league. It's a little bit slower than the Premier League. But I don't think if I said that he was French, I didn't mean it, because I know he's Belgian, but I don't think I said that. Let's see. Let's see what you guys are saying. And I was saying, like, Yusuf Fofana is a French international. So if that's, I know I said that for sure. So Matt G says, happy days, really good news. Let's see. John P says, I would start doing the groundwork for Evan Ferguson. Forget about Toney. It's interesting. I'm just looking through the comments, making sure we're staying on topic, because I don't want to go too far into the striker conversation. I want to hold off on that for just a minute. Rom said, Roms, what are you doing here? This is not Roms. I know this is not Roms. You better be doing some sort of stream or something about your boy Mo Salah, because it's not looking good. No, I'm just joking. But you're saying, I agree. I think it's smart from Arsenal. It's proactive selling Tierney. Gotta move him on. Like, it's just time. You know what I mean? So yeah, like, there's players that we can move on that could bring in some money and ultimately like free up space for new guys to come in. And that's where, the links to like Ivan Toney become a little bit more interesting. And I'll tell you exactly where it came from, because it didn't come from any sort of journalist, but it did come from somebody that's been very, very, very reliable throughout this transfer window. And his name is AFC Amden. And he basically said, this is coming from Tier 1 Brentford journalist at The Athletic, was saying that when Toney returns in January, he will only have 18 months left on his deal, and other clubs will want to sign him. So I'm sure Brentford already know that, like, they're are probably clubs tapping up Toney now. Like, that's just the truth. I mean, 18 months left on your deal. A very good striker in his own right. Multiple teams probably need a striker. And so they will be looking to bring in somebody like Toney. And he said, AFC Ahmed said, will be plenty of interest in Toney, including from Arsenal. Good working relationship with Brentford after the Raya deal, one to watch. And I'll say this, like, I was very interested to see his interview on the, what was it called, Diary of a CEO with Stephen. His last name is escaping me, but you guys know who I'm talking about. And I wanted to see what he was saying, to be honest. Like, everything that he said about the betting, I was just like, bro, like, you did it and it is what it is, but you're owning up to your mistake and it is what it is. Like, people make mistakes, like, so you have to just like let it go, right? But the thing that really stood out to me is that his story about kind of like being rejected quite a bit and having to come up from like lower leagues and really wait his turn, and the people that he has around him, and always feeling like he was gonna make it, his time would come. And he had multiple opportunities. He went to Newcastle. He had the opportunity to go to Wolves. That fell through because they said he had scoliosis in his back, which they already knew about, but whatever. And it just highlights that things like this happen in football. And until somebody is in the shirt, you can really think that something is about to happen. And it could really just fall through just like that, at the very last minute, And, I really enjoyed the interview because, like, I love hearing, players talk about their journey. And what really stood out to me was that his story is so similar to a lot of the players that we have in the team right now that have went through a lot of adversity to get where they are, have played through the lower leagues, haven't necessarily been the shiniest, most fancy signing that you could make. I think about players like Ben White and Ramsdale and Declan Rice, and a couple of others that have just had to grind it out to get where they are right now. And I think his story definitely aligns with the group that we have. He's not an Osimhen. He's not fancy like that. Like, Osimhen is the type of player that's going to go for over 100 and something million, is going to be like the superstar, but Toney is a little bit more under the radar. Something else that he has in common with our other players in our team is that he's from within the league. And we know that Arsenal love to buy players from within the Premier League. And so I do think there are enough threads there to make me believe that Arsenal would be interested in somebody like Toney, even outside of just the way that he plays. But one thing that stands out to me about Ivan Toney that I actually don't think somebody like an Osimhen has is the ability to like play within our system and link up play and have the creativity aspect of his game. Everything would have to change about the way that we play if we have somebody like Osimhen. Now, that would be worth it for somebody like that because you're going to get so many goals. But I think Arsenal really do thrive in a scenario where they have somebody up front that can link play, that has the creativity, can have players play off of him, but it's also like a devastating striker, right? And that's just what Gabriel Jesus doesn't have. And this is no shade to Gabby because, like, you guys know I've been a huge advocate of Gabriel Jesus coming to Arsenal before he even did. So this is no shade, but he is what he is. He is a player that is extremely talented, that is like a top player. Technical, his technical ability is really up there. His physicality is great for a player that's not so big, but he really lacks the clinical part of the game. And that's probably the reason why he'll never be considered world class, is just because when you have the number 9 on your back, you have to be putting up the numbers. And so, I would imagine Arsenal would want somebody that can do the link up play, that has the ability to kind of like have that creativity and get the assists, but also is going to be clinical. Something else that Toney really would add to Arsenal that I've been begging for, and you guys know this has been in the back of my mind for a while, is we need a dead ball specialist like we need air. We need a dead ball specialist like we need water. Like, there's nobody in our team that is reliable in dead ball scenarios. And if there's anybody in the league that is like, you stop and you watch when they take a free kick, it is Ivan Toney. He puts them away. He's very good with those. And he's also very good on penalties. So there's a lot of things that would make him an attractive proposition to Arsenal. There are things that I don't necessarily think, match up, but I can see Arsenal going for somebody like Ivan Toney versus an Osimhen. Evan Ferguson is an interesting one because he seems like the flavor of the month. He hasn't really done that much in the Premier League yet, but people are like projecting him to be the next big thing. And obviously, Brighton have already put £120 million price tag on his head, kind of thing. So he's going to cost a lot. But I like the idea of Ivan Toney because of all the threads that make it. He feels like somebody that would be like somebody that Arsenal would really look at. And in his interview, he did say that he likes Arsenal and he likes the way we play. The fans are really passionate and stuff like that. He also said he's a Liverpool fan, but it's one to watch. I could definitely see us going for Ivan Toney in January, especially if we fail to bring in another attacker, in this window. I could see us just pushing that, and then bringing in somebody like Ivan Toney. And in regards to like, oh, what about a Saka backup? I'll be totally honest with you guys. I think if we could bring in a striker, the best possible player that you can have backing up Saka or playing off of the right-hand side is Gabriel Jesus. I mean, off of the wing, the guy is devastating as well, So it's an interesting link. I'm sure we have other options too that we're looking at. I'm not necessarily super sold on the idea that we're looking at Evan Ferguson, but I can definitely see Toney 100%. Just we don't do flashy. We don't do flashy. Like, even though Declan Rice was expensive, he is not a flashy player. And I just think it's, it just feels like something we would be looking at. But again, other teams will be looking at him as well. James T says, Toney could be our modern day Ian Wright. That's a very interesting parallel. I like that. Arsenal do well with signings like this. I just think that it fits us a little bit more than the shiny, fancy, like big, it just feels like something that we would do. Bendover says Ferguson has done nothing in his career yet. And I think that's a very fair statement. He's done nothing yet. He's being projected to do so much. But one thing that I'm a little bit wary of just at the moment is like Brentford are being praised a lot for what they're doing, and they deserve the praise that they're getting. Their recruitment is absolutely out of this world, and they are able to find these very talented players for very little and like turn them into these superstars. But I just am not sold that like every single player that comes through there is somebody that we need to be looking at and be willing to spend 100 million on. I think that there's other players and there's other teams that we can recruit from. I like the idea of having a very good relationship with Brentford. I love the idea of Ajax as well, and also Monaco. I think they have very good recruitment systems as well, but you don't have to spend 100 and something million on every single one of their players, so I think we're getting very like in the weeds with what comes to Brighton. It's any player that they have. It's like, you have to go get that guy. You have to go get that guy. But there's so many other teams that you can look at and say they have great recruitment. Do they have any players that fit us as well? Damien says, Arsenal will not buy Toney. Controversy, no. I mean, controversy would be over, by betting to me is different than other types of controversies. You know what I mean? Like, I think betting is one of those things where, yeah, it's shitty and like, you shouldn't be doing it, but there are way worse things out there. And like, if you can get the help, and he obviously needs the therapy and to really talk to somebody because he does have a betting addiction and all that kind of stuff. To me, that is something that you can work with versus other types of scandals that I don't actually need to name right now. Marco says, I prefer Evan Ferguson over Toney. The Toney noise to me sounds like Calvert-Lewin noise from 2 years ago. I mean, Ivan Toney has scored 20 goals in the Premier League. I don't think Calvert-Lewin has ever scored 20 goals in the Premier League. And I think you can tell that there's a definite level to Toney that is significantly higher than somebody like Calvert-Lewin. Like, Calvert-Lewin was never going to be able to lead the line for Arsenal Football Club. Like, he was always looked at as somebody that would just like fill a role. Ivan Toney is somebody that I do think can step into the leading the line for a big team. And also, like, what makes you think that Evan Ferguson is somebody that can lead the line for Arsenal Football Club? Like, he's literally done nothing, So, it's interesting. I don't look at Ivan Toney and see a Calvert-Lewin. I just don't see it. Um, let's see. Mackenzie says, how can Toney have 24 goal contributions in 33 matches for Brentford and people still not say he's good enough? Jesus didn't even get 15. Denver says, with Brighton being so tough to deal with and Ferguson being inexperienced, I'd rather take Toney. Exactly. And like, that's the other thing about, Evan Ferguson is he is so young. Like, he's 18. And again, he hasn't done anything yet. Like, what's his name? Oh my gosh, why can't I remember his name? He played for Arsenal. Oh my gosh, I'm having like one of those brain farts. Actually, I'll tell you guys this, like, ever since I had COVID, like, years ago now, I can't remember anything. What is his name? But Evan Ferguson doesn't even start for Brighton all the time, So what makes you think at 19, 20 years old he's going to come in and lead the line for Arsenal at 120 mil? That's intense for me. Like I said, like, if I had to look at somebody that we're going to spend 100 and something million on, I'd look at Osimhen instead, because at least I know he can do the job. you know so there's definitely that. Andre says, I have been Ivan Toney FC, bring him to the carpet. Patrick says, Brighton, you said Brentford. Okay, Toney says, unless we can offload the 7 players that are not wanted by Arteta, all of these targets are just pipe dreams. Yeah, well, we're still going to talk about them. I get that some people are like very, very discouraged by, the fact that we haven't moved these players on, but there's still a very real chance that a lot of these players will go. So we'll still talk about the players coming in. And again, Toney is more for January than anything. Don One says Ferguson needs another 2 years at Brighton. Boy says the only one I'm interested in at Brighton is Matoma. Interesting, because like we just have kind of like an overload on that left-hand side right now, because you have, Trossard and you have Nelson. I do think giving Nelson that new deal, it's going to be, it really depends on the season. I think halfway through we'll know whether or not we did the right thing or not. But, Matoma looks really, really good, like somebody that should be playing at Arsenal. I'd be devastated if we missed out on somebody like that. But, there's opportunity cost for giving certain players new deals. And you don't know right away whether or not you made the right decision. But right now with Nelson, it's unclear. But yeah, Matoma looks like a level raiser to me, or somebody that comes in like a Timber, like a Trossard, that really pushes the starting 11. So we'll see what pans out with him. Let's see. Boy says Toney is going to get himself in trouble in London, as an Arsenal player sincerely don't want him. Depends. Maybe he learns his lesson. People can change. Martin N says it's ironic that he got punished for gambling while his club was sponsored by a gambling company. Fair enough. Danny Welbeck. I was like, I just cannot remember this boy's name. Yes. Yeah. Damien says he bullied Gabriel and scored home and away against us. The boy has the body of Holland. The thing that's interesting about Toney is that I do think people think he's like way bigger than he is. He's actually only like 5'9" or 5'10", but he doesn't play like a smaller player, which is interesting. I think people think he's like 6'2", 6'3". He's not. He's actually a little bit smaller than that. Let's see. Maximia says, I have a strong feeling that Ivan Toney has already agreed with one of the top 7 teams. We will hear about this in December. We will come back to that. We will definitely come back to that. We will know soon. Like every team that needs a striker is going to be like talking to him, and like that could easily be Chelsea, Arsenal, and Man United, because even though Man United bought Højlund, I think they still wanted to bring in a more experienced striker because they'll eventually get rid of Martial. And then Chelsea, we know, will just buy anybody. Like they just like buying for the sake of it. But also Nicholas Jackson is quite raw too. So, they might want to bring in somebody a little bit more experienced. And then Arsenal will probably be looking because we'll need it, Let's see. Sebastian says if we if we were to go in for a striker, we should go for a big striker like Osimhen, and that won't happen this season. You guys know I don't necessarily feel like, I get why people feel like you have to go for like a Osimhen, because that means we have made it. Like, we go for a big striker, it has to be somebody that's going to cost you over 100 million. It has to be big, shiny, big lights, all this kind of stuff. And personally, that is not something that I am in the category of. I think we need to buy the right players, not big flashy. Now, I think you need to buy a striker that's going to give you at least 20 goals a season. I think that is the barometer, the bare minimum requirement that you're looking for. If you're going to change gears into, we need a striker, you want somebody that's going to get 20, 25 goals a season. And I think both of those players, Osimhen and Ivan Toney, can both do that. You also want a number 9 that's going to take your penalties. That is important as well, I think. So I think he can do that as well. For me, it's about filling the role with the right player versus making a statement because it needs to be flashy. That's just me. Demore says Toney's link-up play is top-notch. He will suit Arsenal very well. Link-up play is important to me because I just think that Arsenal are in that mode of like, they need somebody up there that could be usable. You need somebody that's just is gonna do more than just sit in the box and wait for a delivery. You need somebody that can, be creative. I think that's super important. Patrick says Toney will be great for a title charge, but if it makes sense, Arsenal won't do it. But if it makes sense, Arsenal won't do it. That's not necessarily true. I think the idea that Arsenal don't do anything that makes sense, or like if it makes sense they don't do it, is a little bit like unfair on Arsenal, to be honest. Like, Blaze says, are you sure that Toney is 5'10"? I thought he was tall, around 6'1". Everything I read, it said that man is 5'10". I'll actually look it up now. Sometimes they don't update it, so maybe it was when he was younger. I don't know. Let me check. I'll check for you guys right now. I love this. We're having like a little debate. Yeah, it says 5'10" on FB Ref. Let's go to Transfer Market. Let's see. Yeah, it says 5'10" there. But I know people be like surprised at that because he doesn't play like somebody shorter. Do you know what I mean? And I still don't think that that's short. I think that's like a normal height. You know what I mean? Let's see. Height. 1.79 meters. Whatever that is. 1.79 meters. Let's put that in feet. That actually says 5'9". So they gave him like an extra, on FB Ref. So there you go. Matt G says, I bet he's already agreed to Chelsea. They probably offered him an 8-year deal. If that were the case, they wouldn't have been looking at Balogun. But I get what you're saying. Don One says Chelsea would be perfect for Toney. Tony says, why isn't Chelsea after Toney? I don't know. I'm not sure. Maybe he wants to go somewhere else. Maybe he's looking at Arsenal. You never know. So yeah. There's I think he's probably about 5'10". That's my guess. So there, and that's just not, that's not bad at all. For a striker. But obviously there's a mixed bag of opinions there on whether or not we should be going for Ivan Toney, but the links are cool. Arsenal will probably be in the mix. Let's see what happens. Hopefully, if we do want him, Bowley doesn't offer him, like you guys said, a 10-year deal, something like that. So we'll see. There's 160 of you guys in here, which is great. Make sure you guys like the video and subscribe to the channel. It says Mo Salah agrees to the Al Ittihad offer. If Mo Salah leaves them, that's crazy, That's crazy. I don't really care. It's not us, but that's I would be surprised if he wouldn't be interested in it though, because he's getting not beyond it or anything like that. I think Mo Salah is such a good player. Like, I actually think he's underrated and he's really disrespected so much because he doesn't do a bunch of flicks and tricks. People don't like him. But he's so efficient and so good, so quick, deceptively creative. Like, he's very, very good player. But at what is he, 31 or something like that? He might be looking at what they're doing at Liverpool and be like, you know what? I'm just going to go get the bag and just chill out, for the rest of my career. It is what it is, you know? So, but that would be wild to me just because, like, it's the end of the window. And if, Liverpool were to lose Mo Salah at this point, that would be, you know, but also it puts into light something that I've always spoke about on this channel is that fans believe what they want to believe. And when Mo Salah was initially linked to a Saudi move, everybody said, no, 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 it can't be, it can't be. And then a couple of their talking heads, like a couple of people that are close to Liverpool, like played it down and said, no, it's not true. But the rumors were coming from reliable sources from somewhere else. And, lo and behold, a couple of weeks later, and they're resurfacing again. And, I think even with the Gabrielle stuff, like, I just think that there's more to it than Arsenal just wanted to try different things. You don't like, obviously there's a Saudi Arabian team that was interested in him and we were holding him back a little bit to see, if something were to come about. You never know, maybe Gabrielle is interested in going, you never know. So I think ultimately, like, this is a good lesson in, don't always believe what you see. Like, read between the lines sometimes. Just because it's coming from an outside source that you're not quite sure about doesn't necessarily mean it's not credible. Because just a week ago, people were saying Mo Salah wasn't going nowhere. And he looks like he wants to maybe go somewhere. And sometimes it's on the player. Sometimes the player wants to leave. You know, let's see what else. Just make sure nothing else has happened. Doesn't look like anything is happening. So yeah. People were saying Tierney update. I'll check. I'm just typing it in. Oh. Arsenal engaged in talks with Real Sociedad over a loan move for Kieran Tierney. Both clubs hope to agree a deal. Well, the left back wants to play regular football after frustration at lack of game time. Spain offers new challenge. I can't see Kieran Tierney in Spain. I just can't see it. It's too sunny, So it's so shit. And then it's like, can we not get an obligation? It's just, but Spain, they don't have money, so that is so unfortunate. But Sociedad are in Champions League, so I'm sure that that's attractive to him. I'm just gotta say less. I gotta say less about that. I really do. Because you would want a fee, But yeah. Yeah. That's yeah. It is what it is. Let's talk about defense. So yesterday, people were screaming at me, Jess, we don't need another defender. We don't need another defender because we have so many defenders. We need attackers. And I think that's coming from a place of, I feel like we're only going to get one player. So if we're going to get one player, it needs to be an attacker because I'm not comfortable with what we have. I'm here to tell you that I do not agree with you. If that's how you feel, I don't agree. Because I honestly feel more comfortable with what we have going forward than what we have at the back. And the reason why is because, one, Timber made me feel so safe because he could play multiple positions and he was a level above some of the guys that we have back there backing up our main guys, right? And now he's gone. But we also have like some injury-prone dudes back there like Zinchenko, who I love to death, but the guy can't stay fit. Neither can Tomiyasu. So we're heavily reliant on these guys that like kind of they never really play a full season. They never really have. And then you have, Tomiyasu and Thomas Partey going away to AFCON and the Asia Cup in January. And people are like, well, it's only 2 games. I'm like, I don't care if it's 2 games. 2 games could be the difference between winning the title or not. And we know that when it rains, it pours for Arsenal, and we get injuries in bunches. That's how it goes. And so I would rather be safe than sorry. I do think we have not enough coverage at right-sided center back and right back, and we need somebody else that can play center back, because if something were to happen to Saliba, there is not another player back there that in that back three, when we're building up, can actually manage that position through the middle. We saw when Gabriel did it in preseason, it just didn't work. Like, it's just not his bag, right? And so, So we need somebody else, and Arsenal have been linked to 2 players today in Mark Guehi and Shurrs as a Timberland. I'll tell you why I'm thinking about Timberland. Because Timberland and Justin Timberlake and what is her name? I tell you, it's like it's always out of my head. It's always out of my head, but I know it's Timberland, and the name is escaping me. I'm telling you, ever since I had COVID, you guys, I cannot remember anything. Timberland, Justin Timberlake, and her name starts with an N. Timberland. Some of you guys are probably like, who are these people you're talking about? They're only like some of the best artists in the world. And Nelly Furtado are coming out with a new song that comes out on September 1st. And I have it marked down because I love them to death. Super excited. But that's why I said Timberland. But I meant Timber replacement. So let's talk about Mark Guehi first. He was linked with us at the beginning of the summer. And I think like Crystal Palace slapped like a 60 million pound price tag on him. So he's very expensive. But if I had to pick just somebody, that I felt like was good enough for Arsenal, that would really like bolster the defense, that has all the tools, that I would feel confident could come in and really like give us what we need, it would be Mark Guehi. I think, watching him with Crystal Palace, I thought he was really good. I've always thought he was really good. And I think, you could probably put him in a couple of different positions back there. He's not the tallest, but that doesn't really matter to me that much. I know it matters to some people. We have really tall players. Like, it's okay if one of them is like only 6 foot, right? And so, Mark Guehi would be a good option, but I think it was Samuel McBell and somebody else that was also in that article was saying that, Arsenal were interested in Mark Guehi, but it would be difficult to get done because obviously Crystal Palace don't want to lose one of their better players, and it would cost a lot at this stage. But Crystal Palace are interested in Tomiyasu. It was just a bunch of like little stuff, but ultimately coming to the conclusion that maybe it was unlikely. And so, that fee is going to be a lot. I don't know if you're solving your problem by bringing in Mark Guehi and letting them have Tomiyasu either. Like, that doesn't necessarily feel like it's making any sense to me. So I would say that Mark Guehi is probably very unlikely just based on the circumstance and how close it is to the end of the window and things like that. But I would like Mark Guehi at Arsenal. I think he's a very good player. I know he's not everybody, like some people don't rate him. I do. I like him. Let's see. Nelly Furtado. Yeah, you guys are yelling at me. Nelly Furtado. Yeah, that I could not remember her, but I remember the other two. So yeah, Samuel says, I take Guehi any day of the week, to be fair. I like him. I think he's really good. So yeah, there's that. But there was another player that we were linked to in Shurrs, and I don't know. I didn't know him. Like, I don't know him. Like, he's not somebody that I watch on a regular basis. He plays for Torino. He used to play for Ajax. He's a Dutch player, 23 years old, center back, and doing a little research on him. What I like to do is to look at scouting reports and to look at comps before they're linked to us, because I want to see what people truly think about the player, because Arsenal fans will comment and stuff like that once they see a player and start saying things that they didn't actually think about the player because they want to make it sound better. And then other people usually tell the truth when they're not linked to Arsenal yet. And so by all accounts, he looks like a talented center back. He doesn't have a name, so some people won't want him because I do think sometimes we're like, well, I've never heard of him, so he can't be any good. Well, there's so many players in the world that we don't know about that are very good. Um, he's he's big frame, 6'3", looks very strong, deceptively quick, good on the ball, and can play center back. And that stood out to me because, again, that position is so important. Saliba's not there. We don't build up the same from the back. And he looked like he was doing a similar job, at Torino. And so it's an interesting link. The fee would be somewhere around 34 million, which feels a lot more doable than like 60 million for Mark Guehi. And they're two completely different players, by the way. So, it's something that, it won't get the juices flowing, because it's not Cancelo, it's not so and so, it's not Fresneda, who people are weirdly obsessed with, in my opinion. But by what I can see with my own eyeballs, he looks very talented. Just not going to get the juices flowing because it's not a name. But we do need to bring in a defender, guys. Like, I'm really going to stand by it. I do think that I'm surprised people don't think we need a defender when we're back to square one in terms of what we had last season, but we're also about to let Tierney go. And both, like, last season and the season prior, our seasons actually crumbled off of the back of not having enough defensive cover and players basically being at the end, like at the end of their fitness. Like, they were just hamstrings torn, ankles, broken off. Like, it was just like each season has crumbled like that. And so for me, I feel very uneasy about the defensive cover that we have right now, especially on the right-hand side. And like, if something would happen to Saliba, we don't have somebody that's similar to him to play center back. But that's just me, but we still have to like move some guys on and stuff like that. But I do think one thing that will happen is we will get another defender in. That's the truth. Boy says, is Kivior just not good? If he's just not good, then I'm sure. Wait, I can understand wanting defensive cover because the it's not the same. It's not the same side. The defensive side on the left is fine because you have Kivior, you have Zinchenko over there, and you have Tomiyasu that can play over there. And Kivior can cover Gabriel on that side. On the right-hand side, we're one light, and that's why Timber was so important. Timber was playing on the left-hand side, and people started to think he was a left-sided player. He's not. We need to replace somebody on the right. And so Kivior actually doesn't have anything to do with this at all, in my opinion. Like, and Kivior is somebody that, he's probably going to be slow cooked into this team, but it's the right side that doesn't have the ability to cover on the right. You need somebody on that right, and so that's what Timber was doing. And I think people forget that because he played on the left, but we don't have somebody there. And I get what we were saying, well, Ben White can cover there. Well, Ben White can't play center back. And the way that we're started out the season with that 3 at the back, Ben White is not going to be able to play that position. That's not what he can do. Saliba's the only person on our team that can do that right now. We need another person that can do it. And let's say Saliba does get injured and you move Ben White to that side, but then Thomas Partey and Tomiyasu are in the Asia Cup. We are very light on that right-hand side. There has to be somebody to come in. And I'm very surprised that people are saying we don't need the cover when Timber was brought in just to do this. So you have to replace him. You have to. It's weird to me that people are saying that. They don't think it. Like, we don't have enough cover. Like, we really don't. Damien says we need a next defender. Koundé can cover Saliba and start in the World Cup final for France. C. Walder says, would a year loan for Timber backup be better? He won't be injured forever. No, I think, I don't know. I don't like loan signings because, oftentimes, unless you have a long-term plan like we did for Odegaard, they don't really work out. I don't think I think, like, ultimately we've always kind of needed a couple more players back there. I think Timber was really good because he can cover multiple, but we need like, especially with Tierney leaving, you need like 7 to 8 quality defenders in your back line. And that, that because look at what, how many times has Pep Guardiola spent money on defenders and people are like, why are you doing that? Because if those players are not available, everything about what you do and build up, especially for a possession-based team, is gone. It's just gone, And so nobody can do what Saliba can do back there. No one, you know. So we need to make sure that that's right. We need to make sure that that's right. Dale says we need the cover. Let's see. Clock Orange says, Jess, you're absolutely right. We need a center back and a right center back hybrid. Either one of them this window also require right wing. And so I'm not saying that we don't need a right wing. I think people are saying we either need defensive cover or we need an attacker. I'm saying we need both. Like, I do agree with you guys that we need both. I think we disagree sometimes about which one is more important. And for me, hands down, we need to get a defender back there because we've seen it twice. You have a couple of defensive injuries and you're effed. You're done. You're finished. And it's just like, for me, I don't want to see that again. Bring me another defender. So yeah, Martin N says, how about Maguire for center back, just a loan for him for one season? I know you're joking. No, you're joking. No, thank you. No, thank you. So yeah. Let's see what you guys are saying. Totally Extreme says Arsenal collapsed after the Saliba injury last season. Nobody can do what he can do. And it's not that Ben White can't do it, but I don't think Arsenal is building up in this back three the way that they're doing it just for the sake of it. I still think that that's something that Arteta is trying to do. We've done it in every single game in preseason as well, except for maybe the Manchester United game. Actually, we did do it in the Manchester United game. We had Tomiyasu on the left and Gabriel was actually in the middle and Timber was on the no, was it Saliba? No, one of them was out. One of Saliba or Ben White was out and it just didn't work because Gabriel was in the center. And so again, like, we're building up in this three at the back and it's an adjustment to our system. So there has to be another center back there or a right center back, right back hybrid. One of those two needs to come in. Like, I am not even joking. Samuel says we have also been linked to Galatasaray defender Victor Nelson. I saw that as well. Let's see. And Denver says, just what about Sasha Bowie from Galatasaray? He really struck me as like a right back. So I'm not sure that he really solves our issue, but he looked like a very talented player. But I'm very like, serious to me. It's serious to me about getting like another center back or, somebody that can play center back and right back, even though he's very talented. Charles says we are more vulnerable up front than defensively. I think defensive reinforcement can be addressed in January if needed. Maybe, or one of our defenders gets injured and it happens in October, or November, and you guys are saying, why don't we listen? I think, and I'm trying to figure out why we're vulnerable up front. I just, I know the offense, like our attack is not really clicking at the moment, but I just believe that once Jesus is back in, we're fine. And, it's interesting because I do think like, I do stand on that side of the fence that our season really was derailed off of the back of us not being able to defend properly and not so much about we couldn't score goals. Like, we shouldn't have to score 3 or 4 goals a game to win a game. We actually need to tighten up at the back, and that I maintain that. I think offensively we're very good. Right now we're not really scoring as many goals, but we know why that is. It's because there's no Jesus. And really, if we just play Trossard through the middle, we would solve a lot of our problems. So we still need another attacker. Like, that would really help us like challenge the way that we want to. But if I had to pick one, I'm bringing me a defender all day, every day. Make sure you guys are smashing the likes right now. Michael says, just for defense, would you look for someone more experienced to shore things up or someone younger to grow into the position like Kiwi? Or I would say somebody that has enough experience to come straight in. That doesn't necessarily need to be an old player. It just needs to be somebody that has played enough, senior minutes to come straight in. Timber is quite young, but is also very experienced. And like even somebody like Ben White, he was young when he came in, but he had a lot of experience, and I just feel like you can be 23 and have quite a bit of experience. So for me, it's just about being able to come straight in and not need too much, cooking, if that makes sense. And so it could be an experienced player that's still quite young. That's fine for me. I'm okay with that. Matt G says, I think we'll bring in a surprise defender, someone who isn't on the fans' radar. Edu and Arteta know how important the Timber signing was. They'll replace him. I agree with you. I think that was a huge blow for them. I cannot see them going throughout the season without addressing that again. There's a reason why Timber was brought in and why he was actually prioritized over an attacker. If Arsenal felt like we needed an attacker, we would have gone and got that first before we got a defender. You know what I mean? Our window is pretty much complete, and everything after that is like, extra if we can do it. I think the order in which we did things also tells you what Arsenal felt was important, and that ended up being a defender more than anything. So yeah. But again, like I'm saying, like I don't think we don't need an attacker. I just think, I would prefer a defender at this stage if we could only get one thing. Last but not least, I do want to talk about Ansu Fati. He's been linked with us again. Last time I saw that Arsenal and Tottenham were looking at him, and the thing about Ansu Fati is he's just way down the pecking order for Barcelona now. Barcelona have Rafinha. They're also looking to bring in João Felix at the end of the window, which would be insane because I don't know how they get that done. But they also have a new player that I'm sure you guys have seen. He's like 16, and he's actually coming in before Ansu Fati. So, he's getting a little bit of the Tierney treatment. There's players that have been there less time and, whatever, and they're playing above him. And so I think that's a clear indication that he's probably somebody that they'd be willing to part with for a certain price or a certain deal. And Arsenal are looking at him. My issue with Ansu Fati, like I said yesterday, is that, I just am having a hard time understanding, one, because he's not left-footed and doesn't necessarily play on the right-hand side, he more plays on the left, how that helps us, because it's like, I can understand making concessions for very, very good players. Sometimes you'll make a player work just because they're so good, but I'm struggling to see how somebody that plays on the left-hand side is going to help us when we already have an overload on the left and nobody to play on the right. And some people were telling me yesterday that he could play through the middle. I've never seen him play through the middle. Maybe you have. Maybe he's been fine. But he's basically just a wonder kid that Arteta is going to put his little "I can fix you," thing on and try to make it work. And I can see why it would be attractive to Arsenal, but at the same time, I would like to just maybe see us do something a little bit different. But again, I don't really see the players out there on the market. So this kind of, I think, would fit in the opportunities in the market. Oh, actually, this is breaking. Aston Villa are interested in Ansu Fati. George Mendes is offering the player around, and I don't know how many more players they would sign. Aston Villa, I mean, they brought in so many players, but I guess, bring in another or whatever, I don't care. But he's offering him around. The deal would be like 50 million euros, which would be, I think, a stretch for Arsenal at this stage. So I think we're interested. Do I see it happening? I'm not sure. But Sport are saying, after João Cancelo signing, FC Barcelona can only sign either Felix or Lo Celso if Ansu Fati leaves. So yeah, there's something there. Let's see. Arsenal have contacted super agent George Mendes over the possibility of signing Ansu Fati. So the links are there. It's just whether or not it comes to fruition. Like I said, I think it heavily does depend on like Pepe and Balogun going. But this wouldn't be something that I'd be super excited about if I'm honest with you. It would take some convincing. I think, like, not like Arteta needs to come to me and say, "Do you accept this, Jessica?" or anything like that. But it would definitely be something that I'd be like, I'm not sure. Not so sure. C. Wilder says, if we don't sell Pepe, I'll be piping up again saying we should try him at center forward just in case. Fair enough. Don One says, if there are no good players available in this market, Arsenal should just save the money for January. I definitely agree with that. I think if somebody like Toney is available in January, you just wait, instead of just getting Fati for the sake of it. Don One says Ansu Fati needs some season without injuries. Arsenal shouldn't sign him. I just don't see why we would. Martin N says, I'm surprised you guys are so hostile against my idea. I hate to say people who don't rate Maguire don't understand football. Here's the thread. I see what you did there. That's my favorite thing. It's a player or something that people are just they don't agree with, but people start writing threads talking about you don't understand football if you don't like this signing or you don't like this player. Like, get out of here. Like, people just have opinions and it just is what it is, So yeah, I love it. Let's see. Boy says we're looking for an attacker while selling Balogun. The world is so dumb sometimes. The thing about Balogun is I still don't think people are like accepting the fact that a lot of the reason why Balogun is leaving is not because Arsenal hate him and don't want him here. It's because he is searching for first team football and he wants to be the starter. He wants to be the guy wherever he goes. And that is a decision that he's making and Arsenal are making it possible for him to make that happen. And so I don't think Arsenal should promise Balogun minutes that he's not going to get. I don't think Arsenal should promise him a spot in the starting lineup just to keep him. No, because the thing about Balogun is first of all, Balogun and Nketiah have the same agent. So his agent is very aware of how things work at Arsenal and has watched Eddie play well and be sat down as soon as Jesus is back in the team. And Jesus is back in training now, and he will be starting in a couple of weeks, if not a week, So I do feel like people will just start Balogun, just give him minutes. But the thing about Balogun is he can sit there and say, well, I can maybe get some minutes now. But ultimately, he knows that Jesus is going to be the starter. He knows because his agent knows, because Eddie knows, And so I think that he's making the right decision for him. If he wants to be a guaranteed starter, he goes to Monaco, who have just lost their number one striker to an ACL injury, and he just does his thing from there. It's not really on Arsenal doing something dumb when the player is not willing to accept a role where he's going to have to either like accept that he's not a starter or accept that he's going to have to work really, really hard to try to get minutes. And so it's just really not on Arsenal. But I think people want us to lie to him and tell him he's going to start all these games and then just keep him around just for the sake of it. And that's just not how things go. And I also don't believe Balogun is as ready to lead the line for Arsenal as people are making out to seem. Being Uki says, I'd rather take a chance on Pedro Neto than Fati right now. At least Neto plays on the right wing where we need cover and he's already in the league. I agree. I would prefer Pedro Neto as well. But again, if we can't get the right player, I'd rather us wait, Sakchem says, why are all of us obsessed with Balogun? Let the man play football elsewhere. I kind of agree with that too. Nuances of Fate says Balogun needs to make the best decision for himself. I don't think it's Arsenal. He does need to make the right choice for himself. And like I said yesterday, I think I really like players that take their careers into their own hands. And I think more players should do it. I don't think they should just sit around on benches if that's not what they want to do. They should take control of their career because it's a short one, right? And if they feel like they're ready, go out there and play in a different league. Go do your thing. But as an Arsenal fan, if you don't want to be here and fight for your spot, then you don't want to be here. And I'm not going to be sitting around crying over somebody that doesn't want to actually be at Arsenal. And I don't think it's like shade or he doesn't like Arsenal or anything like that. I think he rates himself and wants his career to go in a certain direction more than he wants to be at Arsenal. And I can accept that. Arsenal need to pave a way for him to do that. And they're doing that. And as long as we get the right fee, I'm more than okay with that. 110%. It is what it is. Denver says, I can't shake the feeling we might need a proper 8, might need one more than we think. I just don't think we're going to get to the midfield signing this time around. I agree with you. I think that's a position or like a profile that we're missing is just a true number 8. But Arsenal need a defender really badly with the Timber injury. And I think that's going to make it very hard for Arsenal to bring in another midfielder. But we'll see. We'll see if Arsenal even bring in anybody. I'm surprised we haven't gotten the dreaded Arsenal are not expected to make any more signings, thing from Ornstein. I'm surprised we haven't gotten that yet, but maybe that means that Arsenal are truly, in the market for somebody, which would be great because they need to be. Blaze says, we all know Balogun and Eddie will leave Arsenal next summer, so I'm not disappointed about Balogun. He deserves to play more games. Exactly. And Matt G says, how much are we looking at getting for Balogun? Last time when I was, reading about it, is that, initially Monaco came out with like 40 million euros, and that wasn't enough. And so we'll probably meet around 45 million euros or something like that. So, it won't be the 50, but it'll be close enough. And I think hopefully we'll get some clauses in there to make it really worth our while, because just clip this. We are going to see Balogun in the Premier League very soon, so there you go. But yeah, you guys, that's going to be it for the show today. It's a little bit shorter than yesterday's show, but I just wanted to go over some transfer links and hang out with you guys for a little bit. Hopefully you enjoyed the show. I really enjoyed hanging out with you guys as usual. Make sure you guys like this video, subscribe to the channel, and get in the comments afterwards and let me know what you thought. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye, guys.